The city was a monster at night, breathing through flickering neon lights and the distant wails of sirens. Detective Caleb Monroe sat in his patrol car, exhausted but alert. His shift had already been brutal. 2 robberies, a domestic disturbance, and now a silent radio. He drummed his fingers on the wheel. The streets were quieter than usual. That made him uneasy. A calm night in this city was always the calm before the storm. Then it happened. A sharp scream split through the humid night air. A woman's voice, high-pitched, raw with terror. Caleb didn't hesitate. He shoved the car into gear, tires screeching as he tore through the empty streets, following the sound. The scream led him to an abandoned alley, where a black SUV was parked at an angle. His pulse spiked. 3 masked men were wrestling a struggling woman toward the vehicle. She fought like hell, kicking, clawing, biting, but they were stronger. One of them snarled, "Stop fighting, you." Caleb didn't wait for them to finish. He threw himself out of the car, gun raised, voice like thunder. "Police! Drop her! Now!" The men froze, hesitation flickering in their movements. Then, like cornered rats, they chose to fight. One reached for a weapon. Big mistake. Caleb fired first, a clean shot to the knee. The man screamed, crumpling to the ground. The second guy lunged at him. Caleb was faster. He dodged, slamming his elbow into the attacker's throat. The man choked, stumbling backward. The last thug bolted, abandoning his injured comrades. "Stay down," Caleb barked, training his gun on them. The woman stumbled back, pressing herself against the brick wall, breathing raggedly. Caleb turned to her, and his breath caught. Even under the dim streetlights, he could see her face. The woman wasn't just anybody. She was Alara Kensington. The name alone sent a shock through him. Alara Kensington, the CEO of Kensington Enterprises, a billion-dollar empire. The woman whose face was plastered on Forbes covers, whose name was synonymous with power and wealth. She was shaking, her expensive dress torn, her long auburn hair disheveled. Vulnerability didn't suit a woman like her. But right now, she looked breakable. Caleb lowered his gun slightly. "You okay?" She swallowed hard. I think so." But when their eyes met, something passed between them, something Caleb couldn't quite define. This wasn't just a random crime. Someone wanted her gone. And something told him this was only the beginning. Caleb took her to the precinct, still running on adrenaline. Alara sat in his office, her arms wrapped around herself. She still looked shaken, but was trying to mask it behind a wall of steel. "I need a phone," she said, her voice sharp, controlled. Caleb handed her his. She dialed a number. "Graham, get security on high alert. Someone tried to abduct me." A deep male voice on the other end responded frantically. "What? Who?" "Not over the phone. I'll be back soon." She hung up, handing the phone back. "Look, Detective. Monroe, was it?" "Yeah." She exhaled. "I don't trust the police. But you saved my life." He studied her. "That's my job." She shook her head. "No, it's more than that. Those men weren't just some random criminals. This was a hit." His jaw clenched. He'd sensed that, but hearing her confirm it made his blood run cold. "Who wanted her dead? And why?" Alara stood, smoothing her dress. "I'll have my security handle it." "That's not how this works," Caleb said firmly. "You were almost kidnapped. You need protection." She lifted an eyebrow. "And you think I should trust you?" Caleb crossed his arms. "I'm the only reason you're still breathing." Their eyes locked, a battle of wills. Then, she did something that surprised him. She smirked. A slow, almost admiring smirk. "You're different, Detective Monroe." Caleb rolled his eyes. "Yeah, I get that a lot." But as she walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. And he had no idea just how deep he was about to get. The next day, Caleb woke up to a call from dispatch. "Detective, you need to get down to Kensington Tower. Now." Caleb groaned, rubbing his face. "What happened?" The dispatcher's voice was urgent. "Someone just tried to bomb the building." His blood turned to ice. "Alara." He was already out the door before the call ended. Caleb's heart slammed against his ribs as he floored the gas pedal, sirens blaring through the morning streets. A bomb? This wasn't just some random attack. This was a calculated, deliberate move. Alara Kensington wasn't just being targeted. Someone wanted her erased. When he pulled up to Kensington Tower, the scene was pure chaos. Police barricades, Fire trucks. Tactical units in full gear. The towering glass skyscraper was still intact, but the front lobby was a wreck. Shattered windows, debris, and a smoking crater where the revolving doors used to be. Caleb jumped out of his car and pushed through the barricade. Detective Monroe, let me through. An officer nodded, lifting the tape. Glad you're here, sir. The CEO's upstairs. She refused to evacuate. Of course she did. Caleb cursed under his breath and rushed inside, dodging paramedics and fire marshals as he took the elevator to the top floor. The moment the doors slid open, he was met with a cold, calculated voice. Detective Monroe, I was wondering when you'd show up. Alara. She was standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Behind her, her security chief, Graham Caldwell, a grizzled ex-military man, stood stiffly. But Caleb didn't care about any of that. He saw it the second he looked at her. She was shaken. She was hiding it well, keeping up the CEO facade, but he caught the small signs, her hands gripping her arms just a little too tightly, the subtle tension in her jaw. You okay? Caleb asked, voice lower. I'm alive, she said smoothly, but there was an edge in her tone. He exhaled sharply. You should have evacuated. Alara gave him a wry smile. My company doesn't run on fear. Caleb dragged a hand through his hair, frustrated. Alara, this wasn't some random scare tactic. Someone planted a bomb in your building. She walked toward her desk, picking up a sleek, leather-bound file. That much is obvious. The question is, who? Caleb clenched his jaw. That's what I intend to find out. Alara glanced at Graham. Bring it in. Graham gave a tight nod and disappeared into an adjacent office. A moment later, he returned, holding a black duffel bag. Caleb's stomach dropped. What the hell is that? He asked. Graham tossed it onto the desk and unzipped it. Inside was a detonator, fragments of C4 explosives, and a phone rigged to act as a trigger. Caleb's blood turned to ice. This was found on the 20th floor, near my executive offices, Alara said, folding her arms. Had it not been defused in time, the entire upper half of the building would have been gone. Caleb's hands curled into fists. They weren't just trying to scare you. They wanted to kill you. Alara finally exhaled, dropping the mask of indifference. I know. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, silent, heavy tension crackling in the air. Then, Alara's voice dropped lower. Tell me, detective, how does it feel to know you saved my life last night, only for someone to try again this morning? Caleb's jaw tightened. He didn't have an answer. Caleb stormed out of Kensington Tower, his mind racing. This wasn't just a job anymore. Someone was targeting Alara Kensington, and if he didn't figure out who, she'd be dead before the week was over. His first stop? The crime lab. He slapped the duffel bag onto the counter, looking at forensics analyst Joanna Carter. I need this torn apart. I want prints, origins, components, anything. Joanna raised a brow. Bit of an emergency, huh? Caleb shot her a look. Joanna sighed. All right. I'll get on it. But it'll take time. Speed it up, Caleb growled. As he turned to leave, Joanna called out, By the way, Monroe. He stopped. The explosive, it wasn't meant to be loud. It was meant to be silent and precise. Whoever planted it, they knew exactly how to bring the tower down without anyone outside noticing. A cold chill swept down Caleb's spine. This wasn't just a hit. It was a professional execution attempt. Alara sat behind her massive desk, trying to regain control of her emotions. She had been through hell today, and yet, her enemies were still out there. Graham stood across from her, his expression grim. I've already doubled security. Alara scoffed, as if that would stop a bomb. He hesitated. Alara, maybe it's time we consider relocating you to a safer. No. Her voice was sharp, commanding. She stood, her fingers pressing into the edge of the desk. I will not be driven out of my own company. Whoever is behind this, they want me to run. They want me afraid. Graham sighed, rubbing his temples. You're playing a dangerous game. A slow smirk curled her lips. Graham, I've been playing this game my entire life. A knock at the door interrupted them. Caleb walked in, his eyes dark, his expression unreadable. We need to talk, he said, voice edged with steel. Alara tilted her head. That's serious? Caleb exhaled sharply. You have a leak, Kensington. Her stomach tightened. What do you mean? Caleb threw a file onto her desk. The bomb. It was placed with insider access. No signs of forced entry. No security footage of anyone unauthorized getting inside. Alara's blood ran cold. You're telling me? Caleb nodded grimly. Someone in your own company is trying to kill you. Alara stared at Caleb, her pulse pounding in her ears. Someone inside her company wanted her dead. The weight of that realization hit her like a freight train. She prided herself on control, power, and absolute loyalty from those around her. But now she was standing in the middle of her glass fortress, knowing someone had sold her out. "Oh," she asked, voice razor sharp. Caleb exhaled, his gaze unwavering. "That's what I intend to find out." Graham stepped forward. "It could be anyone. We have over 3,000 employees worldwide." "Not just anyone," Caleb interrupted. "It had to be someone high level. Someone with clearance. Someone who knew where to place a bomb, to take out the CEO without suspicion." Alara clenched her jaw. There were only a handful of people who had that level of access. Her board members. Her inner circle. She turned toward the massive windows overlooking the city. The betrayal stung. Not because she was afraid, but because she had spent years building this empire, surrounding herself with people she thought were unshakable. Now, one of them wanted her dead. Caleb took a step closer, voice softer. "Alara, I need names." She closed her eyes, steadying herself. When she turned back, her gaze was pure steel. "I'll give you names, detective," she said. "But understand this, when I find out who it is, I'm not just letting the law handle it." Caleb's jaw tensed. "Alara, I built this company from nothing," she interrupted. "I bled for it, sacrificed for it, and now someone is trying to rip it away from me." Her voice dropped to something dangerous. "I don't forgive betrayal." For the first time, Caleb saw something different in her eyes. Not just determination, but fury. A fire that wouldn't be put out. And somehow, he knew, whoever had done this had just signed their own death warrant. By the time Caleb left Kensington Tower, the weight of the case pressed heavy on his chest. This wasn't just about protecting Alara anymore. He had seen the way she reacted. This was personal now. And that made things even more dangerous. He climbed in his car and pulled out his phone, dialing Joanna at forensics. "Tell me you've got something," he said. Joanna sighed. "I ran fingerprints on the detonator. Got one partial match. No name, but it's tied to an offshore account that's linked to some shady activity." Caleb's stomach clenched. "Shady how?" "Well, let's just say whoever funded this hit has deep pockets. And connections." His grip tightened around the wheel. This wasn't some low-level thug job. This was sophisticated. Organized. "Send me everything you've got," he said. "Already on it," Joanna replied. Then she hesitated. "Caleb, be careful." He exhaled. "Yeah, I know. Because this wasn't just a murder attempt. This was a war brewing." Alara stood in her executive boardroom, staring at the people she had handpicked over the years. Her most trusted advisors. Her executives. And now, one of them was a traitor. "I'm going to make this simple," she said, clasping her hands on the table. "Someone in this room tried to kill me." The silence that followed was deafening. Some exchanged glances. Others stiffened. A man to her right, Victor Langston, her chief operating officer, scoffed. "Alara, that's a serious accusation." She tilted her head. "And yet, I'm standing here because Detective Monroe saved my life. If he hadn't, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Victor cleared his throat. "Surely this is just." Alara cut him off. "No, no more excuses." Her gaze swept over them, cold and calculating. "I've already hired independent auditors. Every account, every transaction, every off-the-books deal. I'll find out who did this." Her chief financial officer, Marissa Quinn, flinched, just slightly. Alara saw it, and in that moment, she knew. That night, Caleb sat in his apartment, reviewing the case files when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering. "Monroe." A distorted voice came through. "Detective, you should walk away from this case." His entire body went cold. "Who the hell is this?" A beat of silence. Then, "You're in over your head. Stay out of Kensington's business, or you'll regret it." Click. The line went dead. Caleb stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. This wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. But if they thought he backed down, they were dead wrong. By the time Caleb reached Kensington Tower, Alara was already waiting for him, standing in front of her private balcony, whiskey in hand. He stepped inside, locking the door behind him. "You're being watched," he said immediately. Alara took a slow sip of her drink. "Of course I am." Caleb's patience snapped. "Alara, this isn't a game. Someone just threatened me. I don't know who we're dealing with, but they have power, resources, and zero hesitation when it comes to taking lives." Alara finally turned to face him. "I know exactly who we're dealing with." Caleb frowned. "What?" She exhaled slowly, swirling the whiskey in her glass. "My father." The words hit him like a brick. "What?" Alara clenched her jaw. "He was a monster. Ruthless. And when he died, he left behind a power vacuum. There were people, powerful people, who didn't like that I took over." Caleb's stomach twisted. "So this isn't just a hit. This is a corporate war." Alara gave a bitter laugh. "Detective, this is far worse than a war." She set her drink down and walked toward him, her voice dropping lower. "This is a blood feud." Caleb's mind raced as he processed Alara's words. A blood feud. This wasn't just an assassination attempt. It was a power play, a legacy war. "Who?" he demanded. "Who's pulling the strings?" Alara exhaled sharply. "I don't know yet. But my father had enemies. Men who saw me as nothing more than a placeholder until they took control." Caleb's jaw tightened. "And they finally decided it's time to remove you." Alara's smirk was bitter. "Exactly." But then her gaze hardened. "They won't succeed." Caleb admired her resilience, but he knew how dangerous this was getting. "We're not waiting for another attack," he said. "We need to go on the offensive." Alara tilted her head. "I assume you have a plan." Caleb leaned forward. "I'm going to find out who in your company is selling you out. And when I do," his eyes darkened, "they'll wish they had never been born." The next morning, forensic reports came back. Joanna's voice was tense. "Caleb, I got something. The offshore account that funded the hit, it's linked to Victor Langston." Caleb's pulse spiked. Victor Langston, Alara's COO, the second in command, the man who had everything to gain if Alara disappeared. Caleb grabbed his gun. "Send me everything you have. I'm going hunting." Alara sat at the head of the boardroom table, staring at Victor. The room was silent. Victor leaned back, a lazy smirk on his face. "You called this meeting for what, exactly?" Alara slid a folder across the table. "Because I know Victor." Victor's expression didn't change. "Know what?" Alara's voice was ice. "That you tried to have me killed." The room erupted into murmurs. Victor let out a slow chuckle, feigning amusement. "Alara, this is a ridiculous accusation." Caleb entered then, gun holstered but deadly serious. "Actually, Victor," he said, tossing another file onto the table, "we traced the money that funded the hit straight to your private offshore account." Victor's face twitched, just slightly, but Alara caught it. "You wanted me gone," she said coldly. "You thought I was weak. A placeholder." Victor's silence spoke volumes. Then he stood. "You can't prove anything." Caleb's smirk was deadly. "Actually, I already have." Two officers walked in. "Victor Langston, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder." As they cuffed him, Alara leaned in, whispering one last thing into his ear. "You made one mistake, Victor." Her voice was a blade. "You didn't kill me when you had the chance." Victor was dragged out, but Alara knew this wasn't over. Victor was just a pawn. The king was still out there, and she was going to find him. Alara stood in front of her office window, staring at the city. She could feel it. The war wasn't over. Victor was just a piece of the puzzle. The real mastermind? He was still waiting in the shadows. And Alara wouldn't wait for him to strike again. She turned to Caleb. "I need your help." Caleb smirked. "I figure as much." Alara's eyes darkened. "We're not playing defense anymore." She turned back to the city. "We're going to burn them down first." Caleb knew Alara was done playing defense. She had spent her entire life climbing to the top, and now someone wanted to bury her alive. But they had underestimated her. She wasn't the kind of woman who ran. As they drove through the city, heading to an undisclosed location, Caleb's phone rang. "Joanna, I found something," she said, voice urgent. Victor was just a puppet. The real money trail leads back to a man named William Kensington. Caleb's grip tightened around the wheel. "That name sounds familiar." Joanna sighed. "It should. That's Alara's uncle." Caleb's heart dropped. He glanced at Alara. "Your uncle, William. Tell me about him." Alara stiffened, a rare flicker of pain crossing her face. "He was my father's younger brother. He always believed he should have been the one running the company after my father died. Caleb exhaled sharply. Well, looks like he finally decided to take what he thinks is his. Alara's expression hardened. Then it's time I remind him why he lost in the first place. William Kensington was powerful, but he was also arrogant. That was his weakness. Alara had spent her life navigating corporate war zones, and now she was about to end this one. We're going to make him expose himself, she said as they gathered in a safe house outside the city. He thinks he's untouchable, but if I announce a major security breach at Kensington Enterprises, he'll be forced to act. Caleb frowned. You're baiting him. Alara smirked. Exactly. The next night, Alara held a press conference, announcing that an internal audit had exposed a financial leak and that a full-scale investigation was underway. Within 2 hours, her security team caught William's men trying to wipe data from the company's servers. Gotcha, Caleb muttered. But that wasn't all. A black car pulled up to the building. William Kensington stepped out, flanked by his lawyers, looking calm, confident. Alara walked up to meet him, the tension thick as steel. He smirked. You should have stayed out of this, my dear. Alara's voice was ice. You should have killed me when you had the chance. William's smirk faltered for the first time. And that's when the FBI arrived. William Kensington, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and corporate fraud, the lead agent announced. Caleb watched as William's face turned ghost white. Alara leaned in close, her whisper venomous. Checkmate. William's arrest sent shockwaves through the city. Over the next few weeks, Kensington Enterprises underwent a massive restructuring. But there was one more piece left. The board members who had sided with William were forced out. And Alara? She stood taller than ever. Caleb sat on the hood of his car, watching the city lights when Alara walked up beside him. You did it, he said. She smirked. We did it. They stood there in silence, until Caleb finally asked, What's next for you? Alara exhaled. I rebuild. Stronger. Smarter. No more second chances. He nodded. And for what it's worth, you're not as cold-hearted as you pretend to be. Alara gave him a long look. Then, in a rare moment of vulnerability, she said, Neither are you. As the city stretched before them, they knew one thing. They had both survived the storm, and neither of them would ever be the same again.